The samurai suck, and they are actually a negative influence on American culture, despite how they are portrayed in the media. Now, while glorified in society as being noble warriors, in truth, the samurai of Japan were just insecure brown belts with stupid haircuts who went around and took away people's Second Amendment rights. And, unknown to most people, it was actually the United States that defeated the samurai, and in doing so, we gave guns and freedom to the Japanese peasants, beginning what's known as the Meiji Restoration period. Now, this would actually be the first of two wars we would have with Japan in our history, and I believe that we, the people, should remember both of those wars as good things that the American people have done. And I do believe that objectively, that the image and the legacy of the samurai should be as anti-American as a British redcoat, a Nazi, a communist, the Ku Klux Klan, Islamic extremists, the French, or any other Democrat for that matter. And I want to prove that by giving the history as I see it of the samurai. Now, as I said, Japan was not unified during this time. It was a series of different samurai clans warring with each other, and they were loyal to certain daimyos that controlled territory. And I do want to point out that while Sengoku Jidai does translate to Warring States period, the Japanese period of the Warring States is not nearly as cool or as important as the Chinese Warring States period. These various samurai clans would unite under a man named Tokugawa Ieyasu, who was the victor of the Battle of Sekigahara, and that would begin the unification of Japan under what's known as the Tokugawa shogunate. The shogunate of Japan was very isolated, xenophobic, and what we would consider despotic. Now, don't get me wrong, I love jiu-jitsu as much as anyone, but if you trace its lineage back through judo, you will eventually end up in Japan and the samurai. And the samurai who invented it really were buttholes. So I think that we should think about that the next time we buy our stupid little samurai rash guards. Now, that is super brief, and that's because I'm not trying to go into the history of Japan. So I'm going to flash forward to the mid-19th century and start off with the Perry expedition. This expedition was carried out under the orders of President Millard Fillmore, and if I'm correct on this, it did not get a formal declaration of war from Congress, so much like the Vietnam War, it's actually not a war, it's a conflict. The Perry expedition opened up Japan for U.S. trade, and it also emancipated the people of Japan. We gave them guns, and it was those guns which the peasants used to arm themselves and liberate themselves from the oppression of the samurai, because, as we all should know by now, a well-regulated militia being necessary for a free state, the people must be able to keep and bear arms to defend themselves. During World War I, France and Britain would convince Japan to attack German U-boats which were stationed in the Pacific, and they did so under the promises of territory and other gains through the victory of the Allied powers. Of course, you do not trust the English and especially the French, and so the Japanese would be betrayed at the Treaty of Versailles when the Japanese the Japanese emissaries to the Treaty of Versailles wanted the phrase racial equality included in the text, and that did not happen. So this would really piss off the Japanese, and of course, we would see them rise in World War II, allied with Nazi Germany. The atrocities and war crimes that the Japanese committed during the Second World War against the Koreans, Chinese, and other racial groups in Eastern Asia that were deemed inferior is, in my opinion, worse than the Nazi war crimes against the Jews and Polish and people that they thought were inferior. While anything World War II related could have its own channel by itself, I just want to point out that the image of the samurai and the philosophy of Bushido contributed to those war crimes. And I believe that these atrocities should be remembered with as much disdain in American minds and culture as the Nazi war crimes are. Now, of course, as everyone should know, World War II was ended when the United States dropped 2 nuclear bombs on mainland Japan, ending the war. And while America should not glorify the internment camps which our government sent Japanese Americans to reside in during the war, I think Americans should reflect well on our relationship with Japan and remember a time when America was great and we used our military to actually help liberate oppressed peoples in a foreign country. And that we should together strive to make America great again and uphold those values truly of what the Bill of Rights encompasses, that all men are created equal and that we are all entitled to certain rights, free speech, social mobility, a well regulated militia, etc., and that these apply to all individuals, and that our country, there was a time when our country actually upheld those universally. And our legacy, politically and militarily, is such. It is not this corrupt, all conquering narrative which the commie left wants to portray America as. But all right, thank you for watching. It was very short, very brief, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. With that, I wish you all the best. I'm out.